When I did my review of the Canon 100mm macro lens, I mentioned that macro lenses have two very significant characteristics. The first is that they have very high quality optics, and the second is that they have very short closest focusing distances. Macro lenses don't have huge magnification, but the reason why they're able to extract lots of detail from small subjects is because you're able to get in very close and focus at a short distance. By the way, I need to make clear that when we talk about closest focusing distance, it's not the distance from the front of the lens to the subject. It's a distance from the focal plane, either the sensor or the film, to the subject. And quite often on cameras, there's a little mark at the top to show where the focal plane is. This is an old film camera, and it's this symbol here, which is a circle with a line through it. And that indicates where the film is in this camera, and it will be the sensor in modern digital cameras. But what if you want to take macro photos and you don't have a genuine macro lens? You might have other lenses that satisfy one criteria, that is, they have high quality optics, but they don't have a close focusing distance. This 85mm lens, the closest focusing distance is 85 centimeters, and this 40mm lens, the closest focusing distance is 30 centimeters. If there was a way of reducing the closest focusing distance, you could use these lenses for macro work, and fortunately there is. All you need to do is to move the lens further away from the focal plane. And you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can use a bellows, which is quite unusual, or more commonly, you can use an extension tube. Extension tubes simply sit between the camera body and the lens to move the lens away from the focal plane and reduce the closest focusing distance. They don't have any optics. All they have is a mechanical connection, and with modern cameras and lenses that have autofocus and auto exposure, they have electrical pins to carry the electrical signals between the camera body and the camera lens. If you don't have a purpose-built macro lens, but you do have another lens that has high optical quality, by buying an extension tube, you can turn that lens into a macro lens for whenever you need it. The advantage with a genuine macro lens is that you can focus from their closest focusing distance all the way through to infinity. When you put an extension tube on a normal lens, you lose the ability to focus at infinity, and you only have a very limited focal range. What about cost? Well, as usual, original Canon accessories are always the most expensive. This is a 12mm tube, and if you buy it now, it will cost you around $85 US. The 25mm tube will cost you around $140. There's a brand called Kenko that have quite a good reputation, and you can buy a set of 3 tubes, 12, 20 and 36mm, for around $130. Or, right at the other end of the scale, you can buy a set of tubes from Photodiox, 28, 14 and 7mm, for just $10. And because there's no internal optics, image quality isn't really a problem. As long as the mechanical connection is solid and the electrical connections work, they should all be fine. Using extension tubes will do two things. It will increase your magnification and reduce your closest focusing distance. But how do you know how much the effect will be? And there are 3 things you can do. The first is to look at a chart like this. This is the chart from Canon that I got with my extension tubes, and it lists all the Canon lenses that you can use with extension tubes. The problem is this chart is quite old, so all of the newer lenses aren't there. And today we're going to concentrate on the 85mm 1.8. Depending whether you're using the EF 12mm or 25mm, it will tell you the new magnification and the new closest focusing distance. It also gives you the working distance, and the working distance is a distance from the end of the lens to the subject. You can also work it out for yourself using this formula. And in this video I'm going to show the effects of using the 12mm tube, the 25mm tube, and the two tubes joined together to make 37mm. The third method, which is the method I usually use, is not to do any calculations beforehand, but just do it by trial and error. This is the 85mm lens with no extension tubes, and the closest focusing distance is about 85mm. This is the image you get, and you can see black borders at the side because I've preserved the 3:2 aspect ratio, and video has a different aspect ratio. This is the lens with the 12mm extension tube, and you can see that I'm able to focus a lot closer to my subject. And this is the resulting image with the 12mm extension tube, and you can see that we now can't see the edges of the banknote. This is the closest focusing distance with the 25mm extension tube, and you can see now that I've managed to get a little bit closer to my subject. And this is the resulting image, and you will notice the increased magnification compared to the 12mm extension tube. And now we have both extension tubes, 25 and 12, giving a combined length of 37mm, and you should notice I'm able to get even closer to my subject. And this is the resulting image. The magnification is now around 0.56. So compared to my genuine macro lens, it's just about half of what that can achieve, but the result is still pretty good, and you can see a lot of detail in this banknote. And what you need to remember is that this is a full image that's been resized, and if I take 100% crop out of the image, you will see even more detail. And this is the 100% crop. And you should see that even if you haven't got a proper macro lens, just with an ordinary lens, with the addition of an extension tube, you're able to get a lot of detail out of small subjects. Here's the original image again, using the 85mm lens at its closest focusing distance without any extension tubes. If you're really serious about macro work, you can justify going out and buying an expensive macro lens. But if you're not that serious and you only do macro work occasionally, buying a cheap set of extension tubes is a cheap and effective way of being able to do macro work with lenses that you already have. I therefore think it's well worthwhile having an extension tube or two in your camera bag. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. If you found any of this useful, please like, subscribe and ring the bell. Thanks for watching, and more videos soon.